Hey, this is Brian Arnold of Storm Team Construction. You're tuned in to the Only Roofers podcast.
Welcome to the Only Roofers podcast. My name's Elizabeth, and today I'm interviewing Brian Arnold. Welcome, Brian.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who the heck is Brian Arnold? All I see is you talking smack on Facebook all the time.
I'm just a lowly salesman trying to make a couple bucks out here, trying to sell roofs.
Part-time comedian.
Yep. So, no, I've been selling roofs since October 7th of 2010, and I'm still doing it today. Do a pretty good job at it. Mm-hmm. And I sell primarily...
What did you sell before roofing?
I sold single-family new construction homes.
Oh,
so
wow.
I worked for that company for 10 years, and then I've worked for Storm Team now for, 11, 12 years.
Wow.
So
what made you switch from spec homes to roofing?
I went from six figures to no figures pretty much overnight when the economy tanked.
Ah, okay.
So I had to find out something I could do that was recession proof, and that's how I found roofing. My friend from high school, or from grade school actually, from third grade, is the vice president of Storm Team Construction, and he kept begging me to do it, and I was like, all right, I'll try it. And so far it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so as you journey as being a salesman for so many years, so many salesmen by this point would have had the inflated ego and been like, I'm just going to go start my own roofing company, which is something that happens to so many top producers, right? Mm-hmm. What has kept you being able to say, hey, I'm just going to enjoy being a top producer, I'm going to sell, and I'm going to live the best life possible on top of all the other things you do? I
mean, there's a lot of thoughts in the process, like, oh, I should start my own thing, do this, that. But when it comes down to it, I make a pretty good living, and they brought me into the industry. They take care of me. I take care of them. We have a pretty good financial arrangement where I get paid pretty well. Last year I was telling the story yesterday. They gave me a $100,000 bonus last year.
Wow.
And they gave me a new watch that was not a cheap watch. Stuff like that. They're flying me out March 1st, March 4th for a fishing trip in Jupiter, Florida. So
wow.
They try to take care of me.
So they take care of you?
Yeah, I mean, they do pretty well, and then I take care of them by continuing my sales.
And have you found that there's a lot of that type of business model in the industry, or is that really why you've stayed with the company you're at now, because they have that business model?
No, I think there's a lot of people that they instantly, I can sell roofs, so I can be, a company owner or whatnot. And sometimes that's successful, but more often than not,
it's not.
It's not. So, most roofers, if you're a good roofer, you're not a good business owner. Most salespeople, if you're a good salesperson, you're not a good business owner. Mm-hmm. I just prefer to stay in my lane. If I'm making what I'm making and I'm just selling roofs and I'm out here, I can travel the world and do whatever I want and still be able to maintain my sales and my revenue, then I'm good to go.
How did you build your pipeline out when you were first getting started in the industry? Were you like door knocking? Were you getting company leads? How'd you get started on actually selling?
Door knocking. So it was door knocking. The funny thing is, door knocking sucks. I'm not the best at it. So I figured out a way, after I figured out how to do it, that I could train somebody else to do it. I was working in Phoenix, Arizona. There was a huge hailstorm October 5th of 2010. So nobody was working. It was like everybody's discriminating for some reason against the Hispanic area. So everybody was trying to work in the affluent areas and all that other stuff. I'm like, they got a roof too. I don't care.
Yeah.
But when I started trying to knock on doors, everybody spoke Spanish. I was like, that sucks. What are we going to do? So I went to the Spanish mall. I found the best looking dude I could find and said, hey, and I whipped out a couple $100 and I said, you want to come work with me? So he was knocking on all the doors, and
the best looking Spanish dude he could find.
Hey, it worked. He was like Daniel Herrera. He's like 19 years old, and he was working, and he brought one of his friends on. So I had people running the streets for me, and all I was doing is filling out the paperwork, and they were doing all the sales. So I just worked smarter, and that's how I started. And from there, I went to storm after storm after storm, and always went and found somebody to basically knock the doors for me. So I didn't have to hear the no's. I didn't have to get in the bad moods. I was just sitting there chilling.
It's a time for me. All right, I'll go.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And how were they? They were taking it pretty lightly because they're still young at that point, so they didn't even care about 100%. The no.
They're just like, yeah, whatever. That guy was a jerk. Like, cool. Let's go to the next one. So.
Awesome. Did any of them end up staying and selling in the industry long term?
Absolutely. So some of those people that I've trained over the years, I've got. I would say that half of my competition in one of my main markets is probably been trained by me. So it is what it is. I mean, it's a free economy. They can, they can go do whatever they want. Half of them own their own companies.
Wow.
And then half of them work for other companies. One of them's a production manager for a large company. So
wow.
it is what it is. I mean,
so do you see like in the next few years, do you see anything else changing about the industry? Obviously, you went through that big economy crisis where you went from making 6 figures to no figures pretty much overnight.
Yeah.
Now with where everything's happening, and how are you preparing for that now that you're such a top producer, once again, such a great spot? Are you preparing yourself for the next phase of what's going to happen? Obviously, roofing's recession proof, so we all think, but realistically, do you think there's any risk?
I do think that there's some adverse risk with the insurance companies coming out with new standards for, damage standards for ACV policies, if those become more prominent. I think that as they go more into the ACV realm, I think the mortgage companies are really going to push back.
Of course.
That's my hope, because you can't have a replacement cost coverage policy and have ACV, and if a bank owns $1 million asset and it gets $100,000 of storm damage, but they only get $30,000 to fix their asset because the roof's 15 years old, I don't think the bank's going to allow that.
Yeah.
At least that's my hope.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. But when I started this industry in 2010, they said there was 5 years left in it, and I've heard that every single year, that there's only 5 years left. The insurance companies change everything. I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see.
I personally don't think that as either, that there's only a couple years left in this industry. At the end of the day, we live in the best country ever. So I personally don't think that's going to happen to us yet. So as someone who's new getting into the industry, what would be some of your advice, or maybe someone who's a little bit more seasoned, what would you give just advice to anyone who wants to grow their own sales pipeline? I know you do a lot of sales training. So what's kind of some of your sales tips that you give to everybody?
When you make the money, keep the money. Just because the grass is starting to turn green and you got a bunch of money, don't go blow it. Put it in the bank, because it doesn't always last like that. If you had a good storm, save the bank. Invest in yourself. For every dollar that you make, invest 20% in some sort of policy, procedure, advertising. Get with Elizabeth and buy some of her marketing materials. I do. So buy some of that stuff. And, I
also like buying real estate, getting into investment properties. So cheap.
Everything.
So cheap to get into real estate.
I have like this vehicle behind me. I have like 12 of those. Not that particular vehicle, but I got like 12 fully wrapped vehicles for other people to utilize while they're working for me.
Yeah.
I've taken all that money that I made and I've invested in myself, my procedures, to be able to work. I
buying
would say,
fancy fridges.
I got a pretty nice stove out of the deal, so it's nice. So, but the fridge isn't there yet.
Yeah.
I ordered it 9 months ago and it's still not there.
But I mean, now you've already been living a certain lifestyle for so many years. So at some point it does become sustainable. When did you realize, like, okay, this new life that I'm blessed with, this is sustainable. This is my future. This is my standard of living. And now you kind of set the bar of, okay, this is what I can, budget towards my lifestyle. How many years in do you tell guys, okay, now's a good point, right? First save it. When is a good point to say, okay, readjust your lifestyle to fit your...
I was about 4 years in where I had money in the bank, and I think the epiphany was when I went overseas for a while. I went for a couple weeks, and I went through Rome and Italy and did all that stuff. And I was sitting on a boat, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But just knowing that you have it as a nest egg and protect it, because you never know if a storm's not going to hit anywhere near you.
What do you do when a storm doesn't hit near you?
I travel, so
How much time out of the year are you traveling?
A lot. So I'm going, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to South Carolina for a day, then I'm going to Alabama for 2 days, then I'm going to Mississippi for 2 days.
Wow.
And then I'm going to North Carolina, that's wherever Somerville is. I don't even know where Somerville is, but I'm going to find Somerville because I have an apartment complex I got to go check out. But I get a lot of, every day I get emails from management firms asking me to go look at this property or this property, and they're all over the country.
Relationships you've built.
Oh, it's all relationships that I built. So,
how is that with your marriage and your kids and your family?
They're very, very understanding that if they want to live in the house that they're living in and that lifestyle that they've got at the current time, that I have to, I got to pay for that. I got to pay for that shit somehow. So
how old are your kids?
Penelope is 2 and Parker is 6.
Wow.
So they're getting there, but I want to be done with the major travel for anything residential probably in 2 years, and I just want to focus on multifamily. Right now, I still sell residential because residential pays the bills.
Is it luxury homes that you're selling?
No.
Okay.
I don't discriminate. Outhouse, doghouse, shithouse
Anything.
does not matter. I'm working in a very, very rural
So your
area.
niche is anybody who has a roof, anybody who will answer their door.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm working in an area that's a very underserved market right now in Alabama, and it's the storm is legit. It's a fresh storm, and nobody's there, and I'm there helping homeowners. And the good news is I've been there since 2013. So my strategy when I go to a storm, I hire someone to stay there and for eternity, and if that person quits or something, or I hire someone new. So our whole goal is to once
Have
I start somewhere,
local storm market presence.
correct. So when a storm hits again, which that first storm hit in that area in 2013, it was on March 18th of 2013. I went there, and the only reason I went there is because I went to Stockbridge, Georgia, which is near Atlanta. And I was in one neighborhood, and there were two roofers that were literally fighting in the street, and there were 23 signs in that neighborhood. And it was still frozen hail on the ground. It was the next day after the storm, and I said, this is not for me. That competition saturation is insane. So I studied and followed the path to the middle of nowhere and found an area with several thousand homes that nobody was selling because it was off everybody's radar.
Yeah.
I don't care. Those people need roofs just like the high rises.
Did you find any issues with them being able to cover their deductibles?
No.
What was the issue that
this place was destroyed, so they had to get it. And beg, borrow, steal, they got it done.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they had, let's say they had a couple pieces of broken siding, or they had a lot of these people, because it was in a rural area.
Yeah.
A lot of these people had sheds. They had metal coverings on the awnings and all that other stuff. So they just took that ACV money and it covered their deductible. So I didn't have to eat anything, and they didn't have to pay anything because I didn't do that work, which is perfectly legal to do.
Yeah.
So that ACV money, you can utilize it how you want, and then I do the roof.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And now that there's more storms that are going to be hitting, I mean, there's only a matter of time before we have a next big storm in Florida market, a next hurricane season that's coming. This hurricane season wasn't as bad as some of the last ones we've had recently. But what is your preparation and what is your strategy, maybe suggestion for people out there to get ready for the next storm season instead of just waiting for it to happen right now and then don't know what to do and they're scrambling, right?
Yeah, it's marketing before the storm, the relationship. Like with me, when I'm doing I consult for Apex too. Apex is a really large company in Florida. So I have people that are out there making these introductions, making these meetings, and building relationships before the storm. You have to, especially on big stuff. Like residential, it's different. You can go knock after the storm. But on bigger stuff, if you don't have a relationship before the storm, it's really difficult to sell things after the storm hits. You need to have that stuff in place beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I can probably ask you questions for another hour. So we'll probably do a part 2 for you guys. If you have any questions for Brian, drop them in the comments and I'll be seeing him for sure again. Thank you all for watching another episode of the Only Roofers podcast. Thank you for Brian for participating, and we will catch you guys on the next show.